Maximillionaire here. Recently, James Freeman had a talk with Merbeast, or Merb, and they were talking about taxation and whether or not it was taking the fruits of our labor. And Merb seems to be really stuck on the concept that only income is taxed, and he's entirely incorrect about this. Another thing is that they talked about how one person cannot choose to take something from somebody else because that would be stealing. But under their concept of corporations, the corporations of the state, the corporations of the cities, corporations of the counties, that they can take your money from you. This is called the tyranny of the majority. It's the concept that one person can't take your money, and maybe five people can't take your money, but if you get enough people together, then it's okay to take your money. Another concept of the tyranny of the majority is when two wolves and one sheep get together to take a vote on what's for dinner. How do you think that works out? Let me get back to Merb, though. Merb seems to think that only income is taxed, and you don't get taxed until you actually sell something and make income. Obviously, Merb is a family lawyer. He's a family law attorney. He has no concept of tax attorneys and tax law. Let me tell you, I come from a family full of CPAs and tax specialists, and they talked all through my life about tax law, tax rules, all sorts of stuff. Anytime I ever had a question, I knew exactly who to ask. Let me point out some specifics where he is wrong, and you are taxed upon your own property, and you are taxed on the fruits of your labor. And let's say you own a piece of property. You bought it. You paid for it. It's free and clear. It's yours. And say you decide to grow some trees on that property. And after you grow those trees, you cut them down and you saw them into lumber. And that's your lumber from the trees that you grew on your property. And now you take that lumber and you build a house. Now, what do you think happens? Your property taxes get increased, and they don't get increased by how much money you spent on that house. They don't get increased by what it costs to buy materials, especially, since the wood is your own that you grew on your property. All that would be left would be the metal, the nails, the things like that. No, you get taxed upon the value of that house and the cost that it would have cost you had you paid a contractor and another person to do it. First of all, it's different in different states, but let's take California, for example. Like, say, El Dorado County, California. When you go and you get a building permit to build a house, your building permit is based upon a percentage of the cost or the value of that building that you're going to build. If it's a $200,000 building, then you get taxed a percentage of that. I don't think it's like 10 or 12% or something like that. And that's the cost of your building permit. And that's not based on income, not at all. But then at the end, when you're being taxed, now you get property taxed every single year on something that not only the materials you owned, but you built yourself with your labor. And they're taxing you. They're taking money away from you every year on that. Another example would be personal property tax. They like to talk about if you make pottery. Merb seems to think that you don't get taxed until you sell that pottery. Well, that's entirely wrong, because they will tax you on your inventory every year. Not only will they tax you on your inventory, they will tax you on your equipment. Say you need to buy a kiln that cost $100,000 to dry these pottery items. then every year they're going to charge you a tax on that piece of equipment that you already bought and paid for. Now, how is that taxing your income? It's not. So there's all sorts of examples of things where your labor or your possessions are taxed, not just your income. So I'm sure Merb is going to come up with some excuse of how he was right all along, and he didn't mean these other things. Oh, whoa, being specific, we're splitting hairs, whatever. But no, sorry, Merb, you were wrong.